airports bring out a special kind of crazy in people. We're talking the man who duct-taped 4 bags together screaming, "It's legally 1 bag." The woman who demanded the pilot come introduce himself like a surgeon would. And the guy who showed up to the wrong flight, buckled in, opened chips, and only complained about the snack mix. These are 49 real boarding gate meltdowns so dumb, they'll make you feel like a genius. And if watching strangers completely lose their minds in public makes you happy, subscribe, because clearly we were made for each other. Drop your worst airport encounter in the comments. We already know it involves a carry-on that was absolutely not carry-on size. 1. Boarding came to a full stop when the gate agent apparently committed a spiritual crime. The boarding pass scanner beeped once, and that single beep triggered absolute chaos. Accusations of aura theft flew across the counter within seconds. Crystals came out of the jacket pocket. Demands for spiritual cleansing blocked the entire line. Security walked over and got immediately informed that their presence was also energetically aggressive. 20 minutes passed. The line never moved. Other passengers just stood there watching what was possibly the strangest gate interaction in airline history. 2. The smell complaint started before the plane door was even visible. Standing directly at the gate counter, the demand for a full refund came loudly and dramatically because the aircraft allegedly smelled like recycled air. The gate agent explained calmly that every commercial plane works exactly that way by total design. That explanation got rejected immediately. Apparently, recycled air was never disclosed in the terms and conditions. Printed tickets came out, random sentences got highlighted with a marker. Other passengers started recording because nothing about this interaction made any logical sense whatsoever. 3. At the gate, a folding table and chair appeared out of nowhere, like someone had confused the entire airport with a co-working space. The setup happened quickly and confidently, with a laptop, a coffee thermos, and a small desk organizer placed neatly on top. When the gate agent walked over and asked what was happening, the answer came back simple and calm. Working remotely until boarding begins. Other passengers stood there with their carry-ons, genuinely wondering if they had missed some new airline policy that nobody told them about. 4. The personal item debate reached a completely new level when a full standing floor lamp showed up at the gate with a shade and everything attached. When the gate agent pointed out this was not a personal item by any reasonable definition, the screaming started immediately and showed no signs of stopping. Arguments about personal item classification went in circles for several uncomfortable minutes, while other travelers in line started exchanging looks because nothing in the airline rulebook had ever prepared anyone for a floor lamp situation. 5. Size limit arguments happen every single day at airports, but this particular one was operating on a different level entirely. The carry-on bag was clearly oversized by every physical measurement possible, and the gate agent pulled out the sizing box to prove it. Confidence never wavered on the other side of the counter because the bag had apparently been measured spiritually, and spiritually it was within limits. The gate agent stood completely still for several seconds, trying to process that sentence before calling a supervisor over who also had absolutely no response ready. 6. Business class boarding was moving smoothly until something extraordinary happened right at the scanner. A Denny's breakfast menu coupon got presented as a valid upgrade document with full seriousness and zero hesitation from either hand holding it. The gate agent looked at the coupon, then looked up, then looked at the coupon again, trying to make sense of the situation. When told this was not recognized upgrade currency, the frustration that followed was immediate and genuine. Other business class passengers standing behind watched the entire exchange completely speechless while holding their actual tickets tightly. 7. False advertising accusations started flying at the gate with serious energy and total conviction that something illegal had taken place. The gate number had supposedly changed, and that change was apparently a violation of consumer protection laws, according to the person making the argument. Other travelers looked around confused because the departure board had shown the same gate number the entire morning without a single update. None of that information helped calm things down, and the argument kept getting louder while the gate agent pulled up every available screen just to prove absolutely nothing had changed. 8. Escalation at the gate took a truly legendary turn when the demand came through clearly and without a single drop of embarrassment. The CEO of the airplane needed to come out and address the situation immediately, not the pilot and not the airline manager, but the actual CEO of the physical airplane itself. The gate agent paused for a long moment, trying to figure out how to explain that individual airplanes do not have their own CEOs. That explanation did not land well at all, and more demands followed, while passengers nearby started whispering and wondering if this was some kind of hidden camera moment. 9. An ironing board showing up at the check-in counter created a situation nobody on the airline staff had ever been trained to handle. The argument began immediately and with total confidence on the grounds that because the ironing board was completely flat, it should not qualify as oversized luggage under any reasonable definition. The agent measured it anyway, and the oversized fee applied regardless of shape or flatness. That decision got challenged loudly and at length, while several people standing behind pulled out their phones because the ironing board debate was something none of them had ever expected to witness. 10. Airplane mode is standard procedure on every single flight without exception, but at Gate 7 that morning, everything came to a stop when the request got refused mid-boarding. The reason given was serious and completely non-negotiable, because Wordle was actively in progress, and abandoning a puzzle mid-guess was not something that could happen regardless of federal aviation guidelines or departure schedules. The gate agent repeated the request twice more with growing confusion, while passengers behind started sighing loudly. Eventually, the flight attendant came to the door to find out what the delay was and received a full, detailed explanation about the Wordle situation. 11. Priority boarding has always had clear rules, but those rules got challenged in a way nobody at the gate had ever encountered before. The argument was simple and delivered with complete confidence. Arriving emotionally before everyone else at the gate should absolutely count as priority status, regardless of what the boarding pass said. The gate agent asked for clarification twice because the sentence did not fully register the first time. Other passengers standing nearby started looking at each other with wide eyes because the emotional arrival argument was somehow being made with a completely straight face and genuine frustration. 12. The seat map argument began at full volume before boarding had even started, and it attracted attention from every corner of the gate area. According to the complaint, the app was actively lying about seat locations because the assigned seat had no window anywhere near it. The gate agent pulled up the seat map and pointed out clearly that the ticket was for a middle seat, and middle seats do not come with windows by design. That explanation got rejected entirely. Accusations of false advertising followed immediately while other passengers recorded the whole thing because the window seat logic was genuinely hard to follow. 13. Showing up 40 minutes before boarding is understandable, but what followed turned the entire gate area into a recurring situation nobody had signed up for. After getting turned away at the scanner the first time, a return trip happened exactly 3 minutes later with the same question delivered in the same hopeful tone. Then again 3 minutes after that. Then again. The gate agent began recognizing the approach from across the room and started shaking their head before the question even arrived. Other passengers in the waiting area began timing the intervals because at some point it became the most predictable entertainment at the airport. 14. A full desktop computer tower showed up at the gate as a carry-on item, and the confidence behind it was genuinely impressive to witness. The argument was straightforward and delivered without hesitation. If the tower was tilted diagonally, it would technically fit under the seat in front, and therefore qualified as a carry-on under existing airline policy. The gate agent measured the tower from multiple angles, trying to find any version of reality where this worked. No angle produced a passing result. The tower did not board that flight, and the reaction to that decision could be heard from the adjacent gate clearly. 15. Getting a gate agent fired is a serious request that requires serious justification, and that justification arrived in the most unexpected form possible. The formal complaint was filed loudly and with full commitment on the grounds that the gate agent had blinked in a threatening manner during the boarding process. Not yelled, not made a rude comment, blinked. The gate agent stood completely still, trying to formulate a professional response to a blinking complaint, while a supervisor got called over and received the same accusation, delivered with even more detail and genuine emotional distress about the blinking incident. 16. Zone 4. Boarding passes are issued to Zone 4 passengers, and that has always been a straightforward concept until one particular morning changed everything. The Zone 4 designation got disputed immediately at the scanner with a creative argument that honestly took a moment to understand. When the boarding pass was flipped completely upside down, the number 4 apparently resembled the number 1, which meant Zone 1 access was technically printed right there on the ticket. The gate agent turned the boarding pass back over slowly and pointed to the printed word Zone 4. That did not resolve anything, and the upside-down argument continued for several more minutes. 17. Security checkpoint rules about liquids are posted everywhere in every airport across the country, but that information did not apply to the gallon jug of ranch dressing that arrived at the scanner with full confidence. The classification offered was specific and firm. Ranch dressing is a gel, and the liquid restriction does not cover gels in the same way. The TSA officer picked up the gallon jug and held it at eye level for a long moment before calling over 2 colleagues. All 3 of them stood there looking at the ranch dressing, while the owner waited patiently for the gel argument to be officially accepted. 18. The gate area got a surprise aromatherapy session that nobody requested and nobody voted for when a full-sized can of Febreze appeared from inside a backpack and started getting sprayed in every direction systematically. Corner to corner, row to row, every seat got covered thoroughly. When the gate agent rushed over to ask what was happening, the response came back generous and unbothered. Everyone in the gate area was getting a favor whether they wanted one or not. Several passengers started coughing immediately, while others grabbed their bags and relocated. The gate agent had no specific protocol for a Febreze situation, and it showed. 19. Airline loyalty programs come in many forms, but the argument made at the gate that morning introduced a membership tier nobody had ever heard of before. The demand was clear and confident. Costco Gold member status should absolutely qualify for complimentary airfare because the membership covered premium access across multiple categories of service. The gate agent pulled up every loyalty program in the system and found no Costco partnership listed anywhere. That search result got dismissed immediately as a system error. Other passengers in line started laughing quietly while the Costco card got held up as physical evidence of the alleged flight benefit. 20. A 6-minute delay is something most travelers barely notice, but at Gate 9, it triggered a formal demands process that nobody on staff was prepared to handle. The gate agent was informed that a hand-delivered written apology needed to be personally distributed to every single passenger in the gate area before boarding could proceed. Not an announcement, not a group apology. Individual written apologies for each person affected by the 6-minute inconvenience. The gate agent stared for a long moment before picking up the phone to call a supervisor because nothing in the training manual had ever covered a 6-minute apology distribution situation. 21. Font complaints at the airline counter are not something gate agents prepare for during training, but that changed completely one morning. The boarding pass had been scanned and accepted without issue, but that was not the problem. The problem was the font used to print. It was not readable enough according to the person holding it. A formal reprint request followed immediately with specific font preferences attached to the demand. The gate agent looked at the boarding pass, which was printed in standard readable text, and then looked up slowly, wondering how this was going to get resolved before the flight closed. 22. Negotiating a first-class seat at the boarding gate using a game show as the legal framework was not something gate staff had ever encountered before. The offer got directed at an actual first-class passenger already holding a valid ticket. Terms were laid out clearly. A seat swap would happen using Price is Right rules where the best offer wins. The first-class passenger looked genuinely alarmed and took a small step backward. The gate agent stepped in immediately while other travelers watched the most creative and unauthorized upgrade attempt in commercial aviation history play out right in front of them. 23. The charging stations at the gate exist for phones and laptops, and every traveler understands that basic rule except for one person who arrived with completely different plans. The phone charger got unplugged without hesitation, and an air fryer appeared from the bag and got plugged into the outlet confidently. Meal prep for the flight was the explanation given when the gate agent rushed over looking confused. Several passengers watched a full cooking operation begin next to the departure screen. The gate agent called maintenance because unplugging an air fryer mid-meal prep felt like a situation requiring backup and a formal policy discussion. 24. Row 13 has a reputation, and most airlines quietly skip the number to avoid complaints, but this particular flight had not done that, and now everyone was paying for it. The boarding pass showed row 13 clearly, and that number got rejected instantly on the grounds that it was numerically cursed beyond any reasonable doubt. The formal demand that followed was specific. The airline needed to officially rename row 13 to row 12B before boarding could continue. The gate agent pulled up the seating chart and stared at it for a long moment before realizing there was genuinely no good answer to this request. 25. Gate petitions are not a recognized part of the boarding process, but that fact did not stop a full signature collection effort from launching in the middle of the waiting area with serious organizational energy. The cause was rerouting the flight away from its scheduled destination because better things had apparently been heard about Charlotte from a reliable source. Passengers got approached one by one for signatures while the gate agent watched in disbelief. Several people actually signed it out of pure confusion. The petition got presented to the gate agent formally, who then had to explain that flight routes are not determined by gate democracy. 26. A 55-gallon drum of protein powder arrived on a luggage cart at the counter, and the shock on the owner's face when the overweight fee appeared on the screen was completely genuine. The drum was roughly the size of a small refrigerator, and the scale confirmed the weight instantly without any hesitation. No part of the packing process at home had apparently involved thinking about what a 55-gallon drum might weigh on an official airline scale. Other passengers in line stared at the drum and then at each other because nothing about this situation felt like it had been thought through at all. 27. Bag limit rules get creative interpretations every single day at airports, but nothing had prepared the gate staff for what arrived that morning, wrapped entirely in duct tape. 4 separate bags had been taped together into one large, unwieldy cube, and the argument that followed was delivered with complete legal confidence. Once duct taped together, the 4 bags became one single item under any reasonable definition of the word bag. The gate agent walked around the taped cube, slowly examining it from every angle. It did not pass. The argument that followed lasted longer than the actual boarding process for every other passenger combined. 28. Sharp objects have a clear and well-established place on the prohibited items list, and that list has been publicly available for decades. None of that history applied to the sword that arrived at the security checkpoint inside a tote bag with a confident smile attached. The reasoning offered was immediate and logical according to the person presenting it. Being inside a bag made the sword a bagged item, and bagged items follow different rules entirely. The TSA officer unzipped the tote bag and looked at the sword for a long moment before pressing the call button because this specific situation required more than one opinion. 29. Pet carrier rules exist for obvious reasons, but the dog walking confidently through the gate area on a leash had apparently not been informed about any of them. The argument started before the gate agent could even finish asking the question. The dog was not a pet in the traditional carry-on sense because the dog had already flown once before, and prior flight experience changed the classification entirely. The gate agent asked for that policy in writing. Nothing was produced. The dog sat down calmly during the entire argument as if it had heard this debate before and was no longer interested in the outcome. 30. The jet bridge became a one-person math problem that held up every single passenger behind for a significant amount of time. The goal was to be first onto the plane, but last to actually join the boarding line, and working out exactly how to achieve both simultaneously required serious calculations. Other travelers stood with their bags watching the strategic planning happen in real time right in the middle of the jet bridge doorway. The gate agent asked 3 times for the jet bridge to be cleared. Each request got a hand gesture asking for more time because the math was apparently still not finished. 31. Full meal preparation at the gate is not a service any airline offers and has never been listed anywhere in the booking process. But that information had not changed the expectations of the person standing at the counter with a very specific request. A complete meal needed to be prepared before boarding because airplane food was simply not an option under any circumstances. The gate agent explained there was no kitchen at the gate. That explanation got rejected. Other passengers listened as the meal requirements got described in detail, including preferred seasoning and plating presentation before the flight attendant came out to see what was causing the delay. 32. Unusual carry-on items show up at airports every day, but the combination that arrived at Gate 14 that morning created a situation nobody on staff had encountered before. A skateboard and a full parachute came through together, and both got flagged immediately by the gate agent. The explanation offered was confident and required no further discussion according to the person giving it. Both items were safety equipment under a personal interpretation of aviation guidelines that had apparently never been reviewed by any actual aviation authority. The gate agent called security while other passengers stared at the parachute sitting next to the boarding scanner. 33. Noise complaints are filed after flights when turbulence or cabin conditions cause genuine distress. But this particular complaint arrived before the plane had even pushed back from the gate. A formal written noise complaint against the airplane engine got presented to the gate agent with complete seriousness and a request for an official timestamp. The engine had not started yet. The gate agent pointed that out carefully. The response was that Pre-filing the complaint was simply being proactive about an expected noise violation. Other passengers nearby stopped what they were doing because a preemptive engine noise complaint was not something any of them had witnessed before. 34. Gate Counter 7 witnessed something that morning that no amount of airline training could have prepared anyone for. A Bed Bath & Beyond coupon got placed on the counter with full seriousness as payment for a business class upgrade. The gate agent picked it up and read every word carefully, as if somewhere in the fine print there might be an aviation clause that explained everything. Nothing in the coupon mentioned flights, upgrades, or airports in any way. The coupon got slid back across the counter, and the response was immediate disappointment, followed by a request to speak with someone who truly appreciated good savings. 35. Halloween costumes at airports are unusual, but manageable in most cases, except when the costume includes a full horse mask at a 5 a.m. departure gate, where everyone is exhausted and operating on minimal sleep. The entrance got made with obvious expectation of a strong crowd reaction. Nothing happened. Passengers stared blankly over their coffee cups without expression. The silence was apparently not the response being anticipated because genuine frustration followed over the lack of audience enthusiasm. The gate agent asked if there was a boarding pass under the mask. There was. Boarding continued without applause, which seemed to be the real complaint of the morning. 36 plus 1 ticketing requires a second passenger ticket, and that requirement did not change regardless of what showed up at the check-in counter alongside a rolling suitcase and a carry-on bag. The +1 in question was a full-size department store mannequin, dressed in business casual with a rolling carry-on of its own. A seat had been requested for the mannequin, and the denial that followed was met with genuine offense and a lengthy explanation of why the mannequin deserved the same boarding rights as any other traveler making the trip. Other passengers in line stopped moving entirely to watch the situation develop. 37. Gate agents handle hundreds of passengers daily, but the request that came through at Gate 22 that afternoon had never appeared in any training scenario ever prepared by the airline. Before boarding could begin, a full homemade casserole needed to be taste tested by the gate agent on duty for freshness verification purposes. The casserole was in a covered dish inside a tote bag and had apparently been prepared that morning. The gate agent declined. The offer got extended again with more urgency. Other passengers started smelling the casserole from several feet away, while the freshness debate continued, blocking the entire boarding line completely. 38. Seat purchase policies require 1 ticket per physical passenger, and that policy had apparently been studied carefully before the argument at Gate 31 began. The reasoning was detailed and delivered without any hesitation whatsoever. The spiritual twin who needed the second seat did not exist in a physical form, and therefore a second ticket should not be required under standard passenger definitions. The gate agent asked for clarification 3 times because each answer made the situation more confusing than the one before. Other passengers nearby leaned in slightly because the spiritual twin explanation was unlike anything the gate area had heard all morning. 39. Multitasking at the airport reached a level nobody had planned for when 2 separate conversations about the same complaint started happening simultaneously at Gate 16. The gate agent was getting the complaint delivered in person at full volume, while at the exact same moment, the airline customer service hotline was being called on speakerphone and receiving the identical complaint through the phone. Both conversations ran parallel, with neither getting paused for the other. Other passengers stood in a wide circle watching 2 screens of the same argument play out at once. The gate agent and the phone representative could apparently hear each other clearly through the speaker. 40. Turbulence compensation requests are not a standard airline offering, but the formal demand made at Gate 38 suggested otherwise with complete confidence and thorough documentation. A written apology was being sought from the airline because turbulence on a previous flight had caused an involuntary emotional flinch somewhere over Ohio. The gate agent pulled up the flight record and confirmed turbulence had occurred. That confirmation was used immediately as evidence supporting the apology demand. Other passengers in line listened as the emotional flinch got described in detail, including the approximate altitude at which it happened and the lasting psychological impact it had created since landing. 41. Mid-boarding is not the time for a wardrobe emergency, but that information did not stop everything from coming to a complete halt on the jet bridge when the lucky socks situation became critical. The socks had been left at home, and without them, the flight was simply not going anywhere according to the person blocking the entire jet bridge. A formal statement followed that the flight legally could not depart without the socks being retrieved first. The gate agent looked down the jet bridge at 20 passengers standing with their bags waiting, while a sock debate held up an entire departure schedule. 42. Gate assignments are made based on operational logistics and never on sunlight distribution. But that explanation did not satisfy the complaint that arrived at the customer service desk with genuine frustration and a strong sense of injustice. Gate B7 was apparently engaged in discrimination by receiving significantly less natural sunlight than Gate A1 across the terminal. The gate agent looked toward the windows and then back at the complaint with no immediate response prepared. Other passengers waiting nearby began looking at the windows too, because the sunlight gap argument had somehow made everyone suddenly aware of the terminal lighting situation for the first time. 43. Wrong flight discoveries usually happen before the seatbelt gets fastened, but this particular realization arrived much later than that. The boarding process had been completed. The bag was in the overhead bin. The snack was open, and the chips were already being eaten when the flight attendant announced the destination over the intercom. Honolulu was not Houston, and that gap is significant by any geographic measure. The complaint that followed did not focus on the destination error first. The first formal concern raised was about the quality of the snack mix provided, which suggested the Honolulu situation had not fully registered yet. 44. Democratic systems work well in many environments, but the airport boarding gate is not one of them, and that reality became very clear when an open floor meeting got called in the middle of the waiting area without any authorization from airline staff. The proposal was straightforward. Every passenger present would vote on the boarding order rather than following the zone system printed on their tickets. A whiteboard marker came out immediately. The gate agent walked over and asked the meeting to end. The response was a motion to include the gate agent in the vote, which got seconded by one confused bystander. 45. Pilots are responsible for the entire flight operation, and their time before departure is strictly managed, but that scheduling reality meant nothing to the person at Gate 5 who had decided boarding was not happening without a formal, personal introduction first. The request was specific and reasonable according to the person making it. Surgeons introduce themselves before procedures, and pilots should follow the exact same professional standard before flights. The gate agent explained the pilot was completing pre-flight checks. That answer was not acceptable. Other passengers sat watching as the pilot introduction standoff pushed the departure time back, while the gate agent made increasingly uncomfortable phone calls to the cockpit. 46. Overhead bin space is shared equally among all passengers, and that policy has been airline standard for decades. But a different system was being proposed at row 17 with surprising confidence and a clear pricing structure already worked out. The bin directly above the assigned seat had been claimed as personal storage, and other passengers attempting to use it were being quoted a rental fee on the spot. The gate agent walked over after the third complaint from other travelers. The rental rate was explained in full detail, including a daily rate and a premium option for larger bags taking up more space. 47. Visual aids are not standard equipment for boarding arguments, but the person who arrived at Gate 23 with a full-sized whiteboard on wheels had clearly decided that words alone were not going to be convincing enough this time. The diagram that followed mapped out in marker exactly why the boarding zone system was flawed and why one specific passenger deserved to board, before everyone else based on a series of criteria that included arrival time, energy levels, and frequent flyer moral standing. The gate agent watched the presentation for 2 full minutes before picking up the phone and calling for additional staff support. 48. Seat assignments are generated by airline systems based on availability and preference selections made during booking. But none of that process had accounted for astrological compatibility, and that oversight was now causing a serious problem at the gate. Row 22 was incompatible with the birth chart in question, and the conflict had been identified using a certified astrology app that was being held up as official documentation. A full reseating was being requested before boarding could begin. The gate agent stared at the astrology app screen for a long moment before asking if there was a supervisor anywhere in the building currently available. 49. Legal documentation at the boarding gate is not something airlines prepare for, but Gate 31 got exactly that when a liability waiver appeared on a Chili's napkin and got slid across the counter with complete seriousness before the boarding pass was handed over for scanning. The waiver had been written in pen with multiple clauses covering turbulence, emotional distress, and snack quality. Signing it was presented as a non-negotiable condition of the boarding pass scan. The gate agent read the napkin slowly from top to bottom and then looked up at the departure board, which showed 4 minutes remaining before the gate closed. And there you have it. 49 living, breathing examples of why airport gate agents deserve a national holiday and possibly a therapy budget. If any of these made you question humanity even slightly, you are not alone. Hit that like button, subscribe to Brain Fumble, and turn on notifications so you never miss the chaos. Share this with someone who travels because they definitely know one of these people. Now tell me in the comments, which one of these 49 absolute legends do you think you have personally witnessed at an airport?